Hi, everyone, and happy Friday. Thank you all for tuning in for our last Be a Friend Friday of American Diabetes Month. We're so excited to have you joining us today, and thank you for taking time before your weekend fully starts just to join us and our special guest. My name is Abby Bornemeyer, and I'm the social media and digital events manager here at the American Diabetes Association. And today we have a very special guest who I'm really excited to introduce you to. And she's going to be sharing a little bit about her diabetes journey and also, too, about how diabetes hits different for her. So we really want this event to be conversational. So if you have any questions for Alyssa, please feel free to drop them in the chat or any comments. But yeah, we're just going to, talk about her journey. And, this is a great time to just listen and connect because, no journeys are the same. So without further ado, I'm excited to introduce you all to Alysa Goethe. Hi, Alyssa. How are you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being part of today's Be a Friend Friday episode.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy it's Friday, and I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely. No, both are great. Both are great things. So to kick things off, would you mind introducing yourself for us?
Absolutely. My name is Alysa Goethe. I am an 11-year type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 11 years old, and I'm also a music educator. I'm a first-year teacher, so I teach middle school choir. So I just got home from school, and now I get to share my journey with, school, with being a diabetic, and my pageantry journey as well. On top of all of those things, I am Miss Polk County, which is the county that I live in Iowa. I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and I get to represent that county this entire year and compete for the title of Miss Iowa 2023 in June, where I will represent diabetics across the state and across the country to hopefully be the first ever diabetic Miss Iowa and then go on to Miss America.
That's awesome. It sounds like you are very busy and you're doing a lot of great things. Also, would you mind talking a little bit about your diabetes diagnosis? I know you were diagnosed at age 11, but if you can remember too, do you remember what was going through your mind at the time, and what was that experience like?
I am very fortunate that my dad is a type 1 diabetic and he has been for 41 years. He was diagnosed when he was about 13 years old. So he understood a lot of the symptoms. And on top of that, my grandmother on my mom's side is also a type 1 diabetic. So I was getting it from both sides. Both my parents really understood the warning signs of it. And I'm very fortunate for that. So we caught it very early. My blood sugars were in the 200s, which, as we know, is not normal, but it could have been a lot worse. And it kind of happened because I had a stomach ache. It was my first week of middle school, which was so rough already for so many people. It's a rough transitionary time. But on top of that, I wasn't feeling well. I was exhibiting the common symptoms of type 1 diabetes. And after my diagnosis, I felt really isolated and alone, even though I had that family support. I was the only person from sixth grade when I was diagnosed all the way through my high school graduation to have diabetes. And so what was going through my head was ultimately, what are other people going to think of me? Because when you're at such an impressionable age, you don't know how people are going to react. And unfortunately, there were quite a few negative reactions that I had to deal with. And I also was just so worried about what my life would look like. Would I be able to continue competing in competitions and pageants? Would I be able to keep singing? Would I be able to accomplish all of these things that suddenly seemed like a big obstacle was in the way of all of those? And so it was definitely a daunting time, but now getting to share my experience and all of the things that I have accomplished in spite of my diabetes is what keeps me going and so it makes me excited to be here today.
Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing a little bit about your diabetes diagnosis journey. So it does sound like you have been able to still accomplish so many things in your life, um, despite having diabetes, right, doesn't define you. You're able to still, do all the things that you love and still chase your dreams, which is so awesome that you're continuing to do. And it's always good to hear too that people have that support system, which is so important when you're living with diabetes, and especially when you have close family members like that living with it. I'm sure that it's very helpful that you have someone, that you can go to that understands everything that you're going through. And maybe they've gone through those things, same things as well. So that's always refreshing to hear. But Alyssa, too, over the years, have you experienced any, physical or mental challenges related to your diabetes? I know you mentioned a little bit about, some of the mental challenges with it, but is there anything else that you've experienced?
In general, the physical challenges, I've been fortunate to have the care that I need to be pretty well managed, and I haven't seen any drastic physical changes that we can see if it turns too dire. But in general, working out is a lot harder than it might be for non diabetics. We have to always be monitoring our blood sugars. And even today, I've been dealing with a lot of low blood sugars, and I don't know why. I know I've been taking the correct amount of insulin. I know I've been counting my carbs correctly. And I'm still dealing with some of those highs and lows that literally and figuratively come with diabetes of any kind. So just the day to day of dealing with blood sugars is already a physical toll. And mentally, that can be so draining because it is a 24/7 job that you don't get a break from. When I clock out of my school, Miss Goethe is off duty. She gets to just be Alyssa. When Miss Polk County takes off her crown and sash, I get to just be Alyssa. But I will always be a diabetic. And that's something that I can't just take off or take a night off of. And so that can be really challenging mentally to understand that and also overcome those hurdles of not letting it define you, even though you are thinking about it all the time. And that's something that I found with my support system being so helpful and integral in is they remind me that this does not define me while also helping me be accountable for my health and also, advocating for the people that I care about in the community that I love so much.
Right. No, exactly. And I know you mentioned too, like diabetes, when you're at school, you're a teacher, when you're, at home, you're Alyssa, or, when you're at your pageants. But like you said, diabetes doesn't go away. It's something that's always there and something that you're always living with. So I'm sure that there are so many mental challenges that you do experience with that, that it's always there with you, and you have to live with it, and you have to, manage it the best you can and know that you're not like no one's perfect with their diabetes, and that's okay to not be perfect. You're going to have your highs and your lows and your, some bad days, but there's always tomorrow, and you shouldn't let what happens like one bad day, ruin your next day. So I think that's something just really important to remember also. But speaking of mental health too, are there any ways that you find best to manage your mental health?
For me, counseling was a really big part of my mental health journey. I was definitely experiencing some diabetes burnout in high school where I wasn't as well managed as I could have been,
Mhm.
truthfully. But it was because that feeling of isolation and because I was also dealing with a generalized anxiety disorder that I just felt so alone in my fight with that. And I didn't realize that my diagnosis was a form of trauma that I had to work through, whether I liked it or not. And working through that really helped me unpack why I want to help this cause so much, why I need to open up and help others, and also the ways I can help myself even though none of us want to be living with this disease. You still have to take care of yourself. You should still take care of others and ultimately try to see a cure for this at some point in our lives and hopefully in the near future. But I also really like doing some of my own self care that I found that works really personally for me. So, going to the gym, working out, even though that can be kind of difficult with diabetes, it always makes me feel so much better and really helps me clear my head if I just get my body moving. But also music is such a big part of my life. I've made it my career as a music teacher, and I love performing every chance that I get. I studied music all throughout high school and college. And so using music as my outlet has always helped me in my hardest times. And it continues to be, that light that really drives out any of the hard days that I might have, whether it's diabetes or not. So definitely music is my go-to.
Wow, those are really great ways, I would say, to manage your mental health. And that's awesome too that you made music your career, which you love so much. That's awesome. And I like how you mentioned too, Alyssa, you've gone to counseling too for your diabetes and to manage your mental health. And there's nothing to be ashamed of for going to counseling. And everyone who's tuning in now, it's so important to have someone that you can go to, that you can talk to and share your experiences and what you're going through. Because if you keep those, thoughts bottled up inside, it is so hard. It makes things so much harder. And just to let everyone who's tuning in right now know that if you ever want to share your story, which we highly encourage you to do so, please, reach out to us over social media here at the American Diabetes Association, or, please submit a blog and share your story like Alyssa at diabetes.org/blog. We're always here to listen. We love, being able to connect with other people who are living with diabetes, and, advocate with them. So we are always here for you. So don't ever hesitate to reach out. Very important. But yeah, all great ways to manage your mental health, Alyssa. So in the comments too, this is awesome. Someone said, watching with my 11-year-old daughter, who was recently diagnosed. So great to hear your experiences. So
It also is so cool. I have some
excited.
students in middle school that are diabetic, and that's when I was diagnosed. And so getting to have that full circle moment is just the craziest and coolest and most rewarding experience, because I know I felt so alone, and I hope that your 11-year-old daughter does not feel very alone, or at least has teachers that are there to support her, because my experience was not always that. And the fact that I had my dad to help me through it meant everything. And I hope this story or anything that I share today can help you and your recently diagnosed daughter. So thank you for that comment. That's so sweet.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We love getting comments like those. And if you're just joining us now, feel free to drop a question in the chat for Alyssa, or comment where you're tuning in from. We love to see where people are all tuning in from. So, American Diabetes Month, this year's theme here for the American Diabetes Association is Today's Diabetes Hits Different. And Alyssa, you've been living with type 1 now for over 12 years. So I'm sure that you've experienced quite a few changes in those years, as opposed to even from when you were first diagnosed until now. Could you talk about some of those changes? Or maybe was there a moment you ever experienced that your diabetes was different than before?
I definitely have recognized in the past years that our outlook and approach to diabetes is so different than when I was diagnosed.
Mhm.
When I was diagnosed, again, it felt so isolating. I felt very alone, and I felt like people didn't understand what I was going through and didn't even try. Whereas now that ignorance is almost pushed away, and people are a lot more kind and a lot more understanding of what we have to go through. And that's from the advancements we've made and also the representation. I know a lot of people freaked out when Turning Red, that newer Disney Pixar movie, came out, because they had two characters wearing a continuous glucose monitor. I proudly wear my continuous glucose monitor every single day and have used that as a way to represent the community and get people started on that conversation of what it means to not only have diabetes, but not be ashamed of it. And I just feel like we've opened up those conversations to lead to a more accepting community, a more accepting conversation, and ultimately those advancements to be made, because I don't think we could have made those advancements without those necessary topics and those necessary people having those conversations.
I agree with you. There's been so many advancements in technology, but also too as a whole, it's becoming, more open and more like people are okay with talking about their journeys now, and really creating that true community with it, because it's something you live with. You don't do it to yourself. It just happens. And it's something that it is okay to talk about. And I am really glad to have seen those changes as well, and seeing that people are more accepting of it and open to the conversation, which is wonderful. So it looks like we do have a question, and this is actually so the mother of that who is watching with her 11-year-old newly diagnosed daughter actually put in a question from her daughter, and it says, "Have you done any camps before?"
I haven't done any diabetes camps. I did music camps all throughout school, and that was a lot of fun. But I always wanted to do some of those diabetes camps, and I actually am looking into there's one called Camp Hurtco Hollow in Iowa, where I live, and I really want to help with their spring weekend. So I'm going to be reaching out to them soon to see if I can be a counselor, because even if I haven't gone as a camper, I really want to help in any way I can, because I think that's such a cool and unique experience that anyone should get to experience, even if it's on the other side. So hopefully I'll get to experience it for the first time soon.
Definitely. And Ella, too, there's so many camps that we host throughout the country. So if you visit diabetes.org/camp, you can definitely find one near you. We would love to have you as a camper next summer. Definitely check it out. There's also Imagine Camp, which is so exciting, and that's taking place this December. Something to look into, and that's right from your home, right on Zoom. So definitely look into that as well, to get, just to get excited before the actual camp season. But camp is so awesome, and it's just a place where it brings everyone together, and all the children there truly know what each other they're going through on a daily basis, and to have that support system, and make friends who are going through what you're going through every day. These are lifelong friendships that you end up creating from camp. So I couldn't recommend it more. And Alyssa, too, if you ever want to volunteer at one of our camps, we'd love to have you.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you also too for sharing, some more of those differences that you've noticed in your diabetes over the years. And that kind of brings me into my next question too, is what advice would you give someone who's newly diagnosed today, or the parents of a child who's newly diagnosed?
The advice I usually give is twofold. So, number one, to get involved in the community as soon as possible. When I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for 3 days at the University of Iowa Children's Hospital, and they took incredible care of me and had so many local organizations that were specific to diabetes come in and speak with me and give me information that I needed to get involved if I wanted to. And on that second day, I vividly remember turning to my mom and saying, I don't want anyone else to feel like I feel right now. And I get emotional talking about it every time. And I said, I want to help people. And so I contacted my local chapters of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. I looked into the American Diabetes Association, all of these organizations that I could find a community in, because I wanted people my age who understood, like you were talking about, that community, that support system, who knew exactly what I had to deal with. And once I found that, it was a game changer. Even though at school it might have been difficult, I knew I had people that had my back, and I knew I had a group of people that understood everything. So finding that support system and also giving back to those communities is so important, because that's how you can work together to not only process your diagnosis, but ultimately find a cure or find better treatments or whatever that may be. And the second thing that we've touched on too is to not let it define you, and to ensure that you can still succeed despite the obstacles you're facing. I'm so proud of the fact that I have turned this into something that I'm passionate about and have accomplished so many things, like talking with the American Diabetes Association. Like, hello, that is so cool that I get to do that. And that wouldn't have happened if I just let myself feel sorry that I was diagnosed. And I'm fortunate with the support system I had. And now I get to be that support system for so many, and letting it be a part of my life, but not take up my entire life was the mindset I needed to make sure I was doing the work that I'm doing and living the life that I wanted to live despite my diabetes.
That's amazing, Alyssa. And it's amazing too that you realized at such a young age that you didn't want other people to go through what you were going through and that you wanted to be that voice for other people and help other people. That is so incredible. And thank you for being that voice and supporting other people. I can tell you're so passionate about it. Just the way you talk about it and all of your experiences and everything, which is so important. And I'm sure you're inspiring so many people who are tuning in right now or who will be later. So, Alyssa, what are you doing today professionally? I know you talked that you're a teacher, but you're also a Miss America title holder.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, I am Miss Polk County. I was crowned in October, but I've actually been in this organization, the Miss America organization, for 13 years now. I started when I was 10, so before I was even diagnosed. And then this organization ended up giving me that outlet of service that I really needed when I was diagnosed. And so ever since I was 11 years old and I've been competing in this organization, I've been giving back in any way I can. I actually have my crown right here handy. So this is my Miss Polk County crown, and I am going to be competing for Miss Iowa in 2023 in June. And I'm so excited. I'd get to be the first ever diabetic Miss Iowa if I were to win. And I'm just so excited to get to represent our community that I feel like is still often underrepresented and needs that representation at the state level, whether it be Miss Iowa or especially at the national level at Miss America. We were talking earlier before we started the live that Nicole Johnson, who was Miss America 1999, was the first and only ever diabetic Miss America, and she works for the American Diabetes Association. And so hopefully I can follow in her footsteps and maybe be the second and next diabetic Miss America. So that's kind of the next goal. But right now I just get to serve my community, loving what I'm doing and talking about the things that I'm passionate about.
Well, we will be cheering you on all the way, Alyssa. That's awesome. And I love too how you're able to, integrate your passion for diabetes into that as well. That's truly amazing and inspirational. And, everyone who's tuning in right now, this has just been awesome. And a few takeaways too before we start wrapping up here. Just I think a big one is don't let diabetes define you. And don't let that hold you back from chasing your dreams. Keep doing everything that you loved before you were diagnosed and continue to do that and more because you totally can, and inspire other people too. And, because you can't keep all of your journey to yourself. It's just going to make things so much harder. You're living with it. So you might as well, be positive about it and just keep pushing forward. It's so important. But yeah, this has been amazing, Alyssa, and I hope we can have you back another time for a part two.
Oh, I'd love to. That'd be
That
so
would
fun.
be that would be awesome. So, is there anything else you would like to tell everyone who's tuning in right now?
I would encourage them all to get more involved in National Diabetes Awareness Month because it's still going on. We're only halfway through November. It's such an important month. We just had World Diabetes Day, and now's the time to really take action, especially with the news that the ADA has shared recently about preventative methods for preventing type 1 and all of these incredible things that are happening. So definitely get involved with the American Diabetes Association, Diabetes Month. And I also want to do a shameless plug to follow me at Miss Polk County 2023 on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can find me on all of those places and see more of the work that I'm doing to ensure that we turn type 1 into type none.
That's awesome. Well, I was just about to ask you too, where can people follow you? So that's great. And I love how you said turn type 1 into type none. That's great. That's something that will stick with me. I love that.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for this Be a Friend Friday. It's been awesome. And I hope you all have a really great weekend and that we see you back here soon. But also to be sure to follow along on diabetes.org/hits different for all the rest of the events that are taking place throughout November. And just there's a lot of resources there and information on how you can get involved with different social activations this month. So we hope to see you again soon. Thank you all.